Welcome everybody to the CTD Cafe webinar. We're pleased to have Adam Goldberg joining us today. He is a teacher of instrumental music and music technology at New York City Public Schools 177Q and an Apple Distinguished Educator. We're going to be talking about iPads as a vehicle for authentic musical expression, empowered leadership through creative thought and self-expression. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over.
It's a pleasure. Thank you to everyone at CTD for inviting me. I'm really excited to share what my students are capable of as empowered by technology. And I just also have to thank Nolan for all his good technical work. If anything goes wrong, it's my fault because Nolan has it down. So yes, as was mentioned, you know, I've been teaching at the same school, PS 177, actually this is my 21st year now. Wonderful things started happening when I started to implement more and more technology, emphasizing the fact that I was using it as a tool. I was always trying to get the most musically out of my students, and I was trying to have my students and what I was doing serve the music. So I'm serving my students and I'm serving the music. And I found that the better the technological tools got, the better servant I could be to both my students and the art form of music. And I found more and more how incredibly powerful music is to enable all of my students and empower all of them as really wonderful music makers. All right, so this is my student band, we used to be called the PS 177 Technology Band, and then the district decided that we all have to say P177. We can't say PS anymore, but that's just a slight technicality, but I mention it so that if you're searching for us later on, Googling us, it may be more effective at this point to search for PS 177 Technology Band, but technically we're the P177Q Technology Band. So this picture says so much to me. We were invited to be exemplars of what special needs students are capable of because they play music really well. And I do demand a standard from them, but I'm able to demand something more from them because of the supports of the technology. And as you look at each one of the faces of my students, you see there's an incredible amount of expression going on there. Each student is such an individual expression of exactly who they are. And it's a beautiful thing to see. You'll notice the contrast between the students' expression and the adults' expression, I guess. That says when we get older, you know, maybe we're less expressive in that way, or you know, maybe we kind of conform a little bit more to everything else. But you know, it's a great opportunity when we have young people to really start to empower them as leaders. And you know, the whole little phrase there in the title of my webinar, which is empowered leadership, is so important because you know, it's wonderful what my students are doing with music, but what happens beyond that, and how do we use the music to really create viable citizens and therefore viable leaders, you know, because I mean we are living in a democracy, and if we are exercising our voices as citizens together, then we are the ones who become the leaders, or we make it such that whoever is leading, you know, has to listen to us. So we must give all of our citizens a voice, and it's a beautiful thing that now we have these technologies that are empowering more and more of our citizens to have that voice. And especially, you know, for me and for I think everyone here, I think that goes especially more so with our special needs population. so I'm going to ask, we're going to load the video performance of Nessendorma, which was videoed live at the US DOE in Washington, D.C. Oh, that's right. So I'll have to unshare my screen. Okay, let's see if we can do that. Okay, stop sharing. Okay. All right. And I think it's a good thing that I couldn't hear it. I know you guys could. So, you know, that's my favorite part, that is at the end when they can celebrate, you know. Usually I get kind of emotional. I've seen it and heard it a thousand times. So it's helping, actually, that I didn't actually hear it this time. But, you know, the fact that they can get the support from the audience, and they're going to Washington, D.C., and pretty much everyone there is a stranger, and yet, you know, they feel this love. So that's the greatest reward. But onward to this whole idea of empowered leadership, there'll be a slide coming up later that talks about, you know, how you have to learn to follow before you can lead. And really, leadership sometimes is more about following. And that's also, we'll get to that with Redesigning Leadership by John Maeda, which I'll mention also. And all of this stuff is related to what's coming next, which is how I got my students from just being able to follow and they're playing every single note is, you know, it's just like they're reading a score. And by the way, the iPad can serve, you notice they're not reading music. They do have great memories, but the visuals of the iPad and the way I can set up apps, it's almost like the interface becomes the score. So the visual cues are all there, and I'll try to explain that later when I show you an app that's like MIDI Touch, which is called MIDI Designer Pro. If you have MIDI Touch already downloaded on your iPad, then by all means go ahead and use it. But unfortunately, I have just recently heard that it's not available anymore in the App Store, at least not in America. So I don't know why, but I'll be mentioning MIDI Designer Pro, and it does the same thing. It's actually even more powerful than MIDI Touch. And if you're not sure what I mean, let me see if I can share my screen. Sorry about that. If you're not sure what I mean by MIDI or MIDI Touch, so a MIDI signal sends no sound, but it sends information to another device that makes sound. So basically what you're doing with a MIDI device is you're triggering another app or instrument or device that does make sound. And that gives you a tremendous amount of power. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can please connect with me. My Twitter is at Adam_G88, as in the 2 digits 88. So Adam_G88. So connect with me there and send me a message, and I'll be happy to work with you and explain more within an hour. There's only so much so much detail I can go into. So this next slide here, imagine showing students who probably have not seen any abstract expressionist art. So I come in one day and I have my students sit down and I put this Jackson Pollock painting, the image of it, on a large screen, and I say, well, check that out, guys. What is that? What's going on there? That's a real painting. Can you tell me anything about it? And I was really surprised at the really perceptive and creative answers that I got from students who, we're not supposed to be expecting these things, or I don't know. I mean, my point is that we are, and that they're capable of a lot of creative thought and even abstract thought. Even one of the students said, well, it looks like they splattered the paint. So, a pretty maybe simple observation for us, but for someone who's never seen anything like this before, very perceptive, I think. One student said that it looked like a spider web, which I thought was really cool. A person, I think, because of all the gray in the background, said that it looks like the beach. So, and in New York, actually, some of our beaches look a little bit like this when they're getting a little, full of litter. But back to this whole idea of correlating the visual. That's really the point of this project was, okay, so let's show them this really abstract expressionist painting and then transfer that to the iPad and say, well, you can paint with the iPad, and I'll be showing you some apps later that directly correlate visual and, almost like painting motions and what happens on the screen visually with the music. And this project went so much better than even I expected, and I learned so much about what my students are really capable of from just trying this. So, that was the first step, was to just show them this painting and talk about it a little bit. It went really well. So this all became a part of a course that I was able to have published by Apple. So that's the name of the course. If you have an iOS device, you can just download the iTunes U app. It's free. And then you can go into that app and just put in the course code, the course enroll code, which is in bold letters right there at the bottom of the screen. And the enrollment is free. The course is free. You can keep it as long as you want. and unenroll if you want, or keep the course. That goes into the detail of how you might build a course like this, because the objective was to correlate abstract expressionist art with free jazz improvisation. And, you know, they both kind of were happening at the same time, and the philosophies of both were and are so similar. And it's interesting because I always try to emphasize with my students, whether they're the students in my band or all of the other students in my school that I work with, I always say, don't be afraid about mistakes, and don't ever stop if you make a mistake. Don't go back to try to fix your mistake, because most people don't even realize you made a mistake, and that's really kind of part of this whole process of making music, is just getting past the mistakes and moving forward. So let's see, yes, that's one of my favorite correlations right there. There's Miles Davis talking about not fearing mistakes. And there's Jackson Pollock's quote, you know, which is really, in a sense, saying the same thing. And another quote that I emphasize as part of the course is where Jackson Pollock says, and I provide a link to this really awesome documentary on Jackson Pollock that has a lot of his narrative, and he talks about his whole process. And one of the things he said, which correlates directly with what I'm trying to accomplish in any music, but especially if we're talking about any type of improvisation, and especially free jazz improvisation. He said, because a painting has a life of its own, I try to let it live. Right? So there you go, talking about, well, you know, there are no mistakes. Just let everything just happen and let it be organic. And of course, that applies even more so, I think, to live music making than it does to painting. So to me, it was like this perfect marriage of the two art forms, and how I could get my students to really become much more creative and independent with their own musical voices. And I, of course, did use the technology of the iPad to support that. And I'm going to get into a little bit more about how I did that soon. This is from one of my favorite movies. You know, there's this one guy, it doesn't necessarily apply to my students, but this one guy, Devin Miles, was an incredible talent, but he really knew it, and he wanted to make sure everyone else knew it. And the band director, the wise teacher, Dr. Lee, kind of calls him out on that one day and shows him up and says, you know, you have to learn to lead. You have to learn to follow before you can lead. So going back to my students' first performance that I just showed you, where, you know, sure, they were following me, but at the same time, they were learning a lot about leadership. And in the next clip that I'm going to play, this is actually from the course, iPad as Expressive Sound Canvas. There's an audio version of this, and then the video, which is actually, it's a different performance, so you'll hear the difference in the way they play. But I want to play the video for you, Nolan. It's going to take a little longer for this to buffer. So if you could, oh yes, here we go. Okay, so you'll see that the same app, ThumbJam, that Toby used for Ness and Dorma, that's being used actually by 4 students simultaneously. And I didn't tell them anything about, well, when should you play or when should you stop playing. I just said, you guys have to listen to each other. So again, this is really the democratic process in a musical context. So giving them all of this freedom, and yet the responsibility to have to really work together and listen and not overplay and not, you know, sit out too much. They are figuring out a way to really let the music live. Every time they play this, it's different. and every time they're expressing themselves and creating in a new way.
Keep it going.
The idea of trying to do this whole 4-minute and something second version, okay, yeah, let me go back and share my screen. So the whole idea of trying to do the whole thing was that I thought there was so much really good interaction going on. And at the end, one of the students, for the first time, it's the first time he did this, he he decided to try to play like 3 notes at once on one side of the interface and then use the other side to play like a melody along with it. And it was just like so awesome. So, and this is what has been happening with this piece. And you can kind of see, if you download the course, the audio recording of number 5 Sound Canvas, that was done, it's coming up almost on 2 years ago now. And this video recording I just did this past June. And so you'll notice really a lot more quality listening and interaction going on. Both versions are good, but I think you'll notice the difference because every time they do this, they learn more and they get a little more adventurous. And I especially love Rachel, the one female in the group. She's actually our lead female vocalist. But again, because the iPad is such a great platform, she comes through as really maybe the most inventive and experimental kind of voice in the whole group, even though she's not really an instrumental player. By the way, I should say that my other students do play other instruments and sing. The person who's playing the drum app can play a live drum set. Toby, who was playing the lead on Nessun Dorma, he is really actually a very good keyboard player. So we have all these other abilities going on, but the iPad is that one thing that kind of springs everything and allows my students to just jump forward musically. So let's see. Okay. So yes, this whole idea about allowing my students to be a part of this creative process musically, it fits in with this guy, John Maeda, who, I mean, he's a graduate of MIT, and he's involved with different corporations over the years. And he wrote this book called Redesigning Leadership, which to me speaks beautifully to the journey that my students are on, and you know, hopefully at least a direction that we all want to consider for ourselves as educators and or leaders and or citizens. So what I love here, this is right from the book, the John Maeda book. And what I love is under traditional leadership, halfway down, well, there it is, right there, the orchestral model. And then the creative leadership version of that is the jazz ensemble. And I'm sure, you know, you can understand how that works. You know, we're having that top-down, follow the conductor type thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it may be an essential part of the learning process for some. But eventually we want to get to the point where we all can have this conversation, you know, and that's right below jazz ensemble. It says community and conversation. We can have a community in harmony. Well, that's great. But how long is that harmony going to last unless we're continuing a conversation? And, you know, in the conversation, there may be some dissonance, you know, and I don't know. I think music can be a little too bland if everything is always in perfect harmony. We want some of that dissonance. So I just love these correlations, and if I had more time, I would go over more of, you know, the comparisons between the traditional and creative leadership models. But this gives you an idea. And so now I'll just put this on the screen a little bit. I will try to go over some of these apps. We're doing pretty well on time. It looks like I have almost a half hour to just demonstrate apps. And again, I'll emphasize if I'm doing stuff that you want more information about, I'm really just going to go over general stuff right now. But if you want more information about going deeper into apps or other apps that I'm not covering now that may or may not be on this list. And there's another list. Here's the next slide. Please feel free to reach out to me. So, okay, let's see. One more time. No. We're going to keep screen sharing on, and I'm going to go into Reflector. Okay. And there you go. You see my iPad. Very good. Okay, maybe we could make it a little bit larger. Okay. And let's see, can I do this? Yes, let's do that. Looks better than my desktop. So, okay, so I mentioned I'm going to go into just explaining about ThumbJam and how I can make that work so that my students are empowered to create all these harmonies. But before I do that, I'm going to go back and mention how I referenced some of these apps where you can actually paint, and the colors and the motions, the lines, and so forth that you're creating correlate with the music. So this is an app called IK Oscillator. Korg is a company that's been making electronic music instruments for decades now. And the iOS platform has become a great place to take these $200 or $300 hardware devices and turn them into an app, and then you can get that app for, $20, $30. Last time I checked, I think IK Oscillator was $20. And you know what? That's like really expensive for an app, for a music making app. That's really on the high end. I'm not a fan of getting free apps generally. One or two of them are worthwhile getting, but just like everything else, you get what you pay for. But in this case, $20 for what you used to have to pay a few $100s for right on your iPad, and you can take it with you anywhere. I think it's a great deal. So let's see. I'm tapping on that little spinning circle there, and I'm just going to clear all the parts because I want to show you how this works. So I'm going to just start running my finger along in this little square, and you'll see where my finger is going based on what you will see happening with the yellow color. Okay, so this is what I mean about the visuals and the audio going together, the oral and the visual, I should say, going together. So, and you'll notice, like in the center going horizontally across, there's like a palette of colors, and that's exactly what it is. It's almost like a painter's palette. So if I tap on blue, it's going to give me a different instrument. Okay, and going on and on to all the different colors. The last one is a drum beat. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this is what I have some of my students who they really can't keep a steady beat. They're not just at that place yet. And there's not much else. And before the the technology came into play with my students, those students, I had a hard time finding things for them to do in my music classes. But now I can have a student who before would have been, a little bit on the sidelines, and now I can have them press this big red record button. And now when they play, they make their little beat, and then when they stop moving their finger, every move that their finger made gets recorded along, of course, with the accompanying sound. Okay, yeah. So I see that. All right, some people can't hear. My apologies. I probably didn't have my volume up enough. And so let's try again. So I'm going to clear that part, and then you're going to see me record it again. So press the red button for record, and let's get some drums. Okay, good. Thank you, Jackie. I see you're telling me sound is much better now. That's good. Excellent. Thanks. So we can, of course, add to this by, all right, let me stop it and try to remember that you may not be able to hear me so well while I'm talking over the music. So I'm going to go on, and this happens. My students don't have to pause. They keep doing this in real time. They add one part and layer another and layer another and layer another until they have all 5 parts going. So, you know, then the next part is going to happen like this. Okay, so cool. So we got 2 parts, and now again, we're having students who weren't participating that well in music, and now all of a sudden they're becoming composers. And they love the visuals, and they love the fact that they hear both at the same time. Don't forget that, you know, this may not apply across the board, but with many of our special needs students, the multi-sensory approach is extremely powerful, and that's exactly what's happening here. So I'll put in one more part, but you get the idea. Just for fun, we'll record a bass line. Okay. All right. So lots of fun. Again, I don't want to go too deeply, but that very quick repetitive loop, that can get redundant real fast, but you can adjust each one of the colors in the palette to go for as long as 4 full bars. All right, so I can just say, well, the yellow one, we don't want it to go only 16/16 notes. We want it to go 64/16 notes. So now we'll have a little longer type of a melody. Okay, so just an idea of, you know, the flexibility and the power within just a simple app like this. So let's go, well, simple, but simple to use. I think that's the whole key. There's a lot of complicated stuff going on underneath the hood, but that's why.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt.
It works.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
wanted to see if you could turn the volume up a little bit. A couple of people said they couldn't hear. Actually, a few people.
Okay. All right. Yeah, apologies.
Right,
Will do. Okay, yes, apologies for the audio. I'll try to remember to, yeah, it's up pretty high now. But, all right. So it's up all the way, and I hope that works better for everyone. Also, I guess my own volume here, that actually shouldn't matter, but we'll try. So here's something much more like what my students were using for number 5 Sound Canvas. This is Thumb Jam. Let me just double click so you can see that. There's the icon for Thumb Jam at the bottom of the screen. Thumb Jam has a long history. It started out on iPhone before there even was an iPad. That's why it's called Thumb Jam, because you hold the phone with one hand and you can actually play the interface with your thumb. But it's become much more sophisticated and powerful over the years. They keep updating it. And again, it's not that expensive. It's certainly not a very cheap app. I don't know, maybe it's $12, $15, I'm not sure. Worth every penny, and then some, I think. So there's different ways to set this up, and there's a lot of flexibility. On the left side, there's a column with all those different buttons. The fourth one down that almost kind of looks like an open book, I'm going to tap on that. And you'll see that I have 2 splits. And I can choose anywhere from 1 to 4 splits. So, you know, for this little adventure, I thought it was enough to give each student just two different splits that kind of encompass 2 different kinds of harmonic and melodic expressions over that one bass pattern, which was, you know, just like a simple C dominant chord. And hopefully you'll hear it. The way I set this one up sounds like this. We use a blues scale on this side, on the left side. Okay, and then on the other hand, I have just a totally different type of harmony. It's almost like a flat 9 with a sharp 5. Okay, so kind of almost like an Eastern kind of bluesy thing combined. So, but when you allow your students to kind of play in between those two and listen to each other, they learn a lot really fast, and you can hear it by the way they start to make their own choices. So, and it may not come out that great because there's a lot of latency with running Reflector, but you know, I'll just try to do something similar to what one of my students might do. So. Okay. Okay, so so you can see the relationship between the 2 sides, and again, the latency is kind of making it hard for me to make really good musical sense out of it. But you can see how, again, when you offer up those 2 different types of harmonic and melodic structures to the student, that you're giving them the palette, the musical sound palette, if you will, to be able to experiment and open their ears, you know. And of course, it doesn't have to be a harmony that's this sophisticated. I mean, we can just kind of go. If I go into scales here, this app is great for just learning all the different scales and modes, many of which I thought I knew a lot of modes because I studied jazz, but I'm like, what is that? What is this mode? You know, because there's so many of them. But you know, to kind of keep it simple, I mean, we could just go with a major pentatonic scale. And what happened was only one side changed because that was the side that was selected. If you'll notice on the very, very top, there's kind of like a little orangish thin line. That shows you which side of the interface is selected. So I'm going to tap on the other side, and you'll see that orange line move. So whatever side is selected, obviously when you make changes, that's the side that you're changing. So, you know, now we just have a simple, okay, right, it's a simple pentatonic scale. All right. So, you know, and that, or just one pentatonic scale can fit over a whole bunch of underlying harmonies. Or vice versa. You could have one harmony and use several different pentatonic scales to provide melodic and harmonic interest. So there's a lot of ways to handle just kind of a simple thing like this, and I really encourage you to allow your students to experiment and open their ears and keep emphasizing the whole listening aspect of all of this. So let's see, I'm looking at time. All right, just quickly, hopefully this will work. I told you I would try to show you a little bit about MIDI Designer Pro. So I know I'm going a little fast into the apps. So there it is, MIDI Designer Pro. And that's what the icon looks like. And so no, hopefully now this is going to work. Okay, we already did all that. Okay, good. So it's triggering. Now you'll recognize the sound. The sound is from that Thumb Jam app that I was just using. But now I'm not playing Thumb Jam. I'm triggering Thumb Jam via MIDI Designer Pro. And those two little buttons, I'm sorry, let me see if I can change the orientation quickly. All right. Oh, that's nice. Now it's upside down. That's all right. All right, just quickly, can I flip it? All right, automatic. All right. Well, so if it's upside down, I guess it's better to have just like that. That's just Reflector. That's not the app. That's just Reflector, kind of not quite seeing what I'm doing here. But you guys will be able to see. So I'm playing button 1, okay, and then I'm playing button 2, right? And just like on Thumb Jam, the way I slide my finger, I can do the same thing between buttons. Okay? So instead of setting up an interface, and that's certainly one way to do it that really empowers a lot of students, where you can set up Thumb Jam so that it's only certain notes in a certain scale. And I didn't show you that much about Thumb Jam, but you can reduce the range to the point where it's only within 1 octave. So you could even assign like a bass line to a student where he's just playing like the root and the fifth and going back and forth, and that provides a bass line for a song. But you can do even to a greater level of support and differentiation. You can do the same thing using a MIDI app like MIDI Touch, where you can set up these buttons. So briefly, I'm going to show you how that's done. It may seem a little awkward at first, and to be honest with you, I don't use MIDI Designer Pro, so because I'm used to using MIDI Touch, so I'm still kind of learning how to navigate it myself. But the idea is that you can really have a tremendous amount of power over what students can play and where you can place these triggers to make it as playable and accessible as possible. So if I tap on where it says More, which is kind of, it should be on top, but it's on the left side there. If I tap More and I tap on Design, so now if I double tap on button 2, you get a window, and it shows you different properties. I can pick the label, so I can change the name of the label. I can call it anything I want. I can call it D. I can call it Hold This for 4 Beats. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, there's a tremendous amount of supports that can be built in to the programming of these apps. I can change the color to correspond with sections of a song or certain rhythms that I want to be played, so on and so forth, certain note values. So we can do that. Or on momentary, momentary just means when you tap it, it's going to play, and it's going to stop playing as soon as you take your finger off. You can put it onto toggle, so you tap it once and it plays and it holds the note for as long as you want until you tap it again, and then it toggles off. So again, I'll leave it on momentary, and it even gives you a little test note there. And here is kind of the meat of everything, where you can decide what note you want that trigger to play. So now I have this set to E, but I have the full range of 127 MIDI notes available to me. And so those are the basics. And there's a ton more, especially with MIDI Designer Pro, which is actually much more powerful than MIDI Touch. There are a ton of things that you can do in order to empower your students. And if you use your imagination, and if you whatever musical knowledge and background you have, you can just really go to town. And okay, so yes. And if you don't have much musical knowledge, that's why I have this next app that I'd love to show you. This is just so cool. I'm looking at the time. I could do this all day. I did want to set it up and kind of give you the impetus of, what are we doing? Why do we have our students doing music? What's so powerful about music? So hopefully that whole thing about creative leadership I thought was very, very important. And hopefully that will provide impetus for you to really get involved and get deep into all that can be done with these apps in terms of empowering students as music makers. So this is an app called Figure. I'm sorry, I have to keep doing this because I don't want you to miss what the icon looks like. It makes it easier to find in the App Store and everywhere else when it's on your iPad especially. So, so I'm going to go into Pattern, and you get this thing, and I have it on lead, but I could pick the bass or the drums. I'm going to play the lead. So let's see. All right, let's turn up the volume. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the notes here. I'm seeing still. Okay, thanks, Daniel. Hi, buddy. Daniel Beal and I are virtual friends for now. Hopefully we'll meet one day soon. But so that's good that's coming out good. I want to change. If you notice what I did up here, I'm just changing. These are all different sounds that you can pick for your lead. So I'm going to go to something that's a little more interesting called mouthy lead. Okay, so that's nice, but why is it so monotonous? Well, because the rhythm says 8. So to me, 8 means eighth notes, yes? Well, that's good, because it means that way it means the same thing to the people who created Figure. So let's do a rhythm of 7. What's that going to sound like? Okay, so all I'm doing, it may be hard to understand just by seeing the reflector, but I'm just holding my hands on that orange part of the interface and sliding it along. So now I'm going to add something to that. I'm going to just keep doing the same thing. And yes, I realize you can see where my finger is going, but I just wanted to clarify. I'm just sliding my finger. And we have lots of students, who, this is a wonderful thing for them. It's just their eyes light up because, wow, I'm making this music now. And certainly, yes, there's so much about UDL and differentiating to the needs of the student. So I'm not going to give some of my students that have a good sense of rhythm, I'm going to have them play the rhythm. But the students who can't, obviously, well, how much empowerment is this that now they can sound like this and they love it. But outside of that fun aspect, because they're participating in that, they're getting a more internal stimulation, if you will, in terms of what they need to do to play the rhythm themselves, because they're a part of an ensemble. They're just not doing this stuff themselves and looking around the room and falling asleep. They're participating with the rest of the group. In every classroom I go to, I create a little ensemble with. So they're really experiencing what this thing called beat and rhythm is really all about. And I've had some really good success with that, with students who all of a sudden, well, now they can play a steady beat where they couldn't before because of playing apps like this. So if I change the number, okay, so if, and this is, by the way, of course, also a great exercise for a lot of my students in, you know, using two hands at once, getting both sides of the brain going. You know, and when they hear that, you know, they don't have to just stick with that one rhythm the whole time, that they can actually change it by moving that number for the rhythm, right? Well, that gives them the impetus to make the effort and the motivation, you know, and that positive feedback that's going to keep them trying. So really very, very powerful stuff. I see that it's already a little after 5. Let me see, just to close out. Well, yeah, just two little, very effective app for some of my younger students. Oh, something's happening with reflector. Don't do this to me now. Okay, that's a little better, kind of. All right. Okay, so you can't see the lines now, so I'm going to just quit out of it quickly and get back in. Whoops, it was right there. Okay. All right. I don't know why it's doing that. All right. So you'll have to take my word for it that there's lines that indicate the pitches, almost, you know, like a keyboard would, but it's, you know, it's just the lines that delineate each pitch. Okay, so on the XY axis, you're getting pitch and, of course, different timbres. And just like a synthesizer, except you don't have to turn knobs, you just move your finger in different parts of the interface. And of course, goes without saying that all the kids love the robot. So last very quick, just here, another just super cool one, Node Beat HD. Right. So I'm going to tap create. You kind of already got a little preview, but again, the same idea of these lines. This is a little bit like the lines in Bebot, and so many other apps have these little lines that delineate what note, what actual pitch you're playing. So okay, so that's just cool enough right there. And you can go into the settings and, again, change the mode and change the scale and change the type of sound. But if I add some of these larger, the larger square and circle, well, you see what it's pulsing out at a certain beat, and again, the tempo can be changed. But it's pulsing out to nothing. So I need to take some of these smaller circles. And, yeah, I have to turn it down just for a second just to say another amazing thing with my students. Some of them create these incredibly beautiful and symmetric and complex geometrical patterns, and I'm like, wow, how did you do that? And of course, at the same time, it winds up making really cool music. So this is another just super fun thing that opens doors to a lot of other possibilities. All right. So the square one is just for drums, but now we can add some of these larger circles and they're going to generate pitches. Right? And you can still play along. Okay. All right. So yes. So that's just some of the fun. Yes, I'm starting to look at some of these. I apologize because I should have been looking more carefully at some of the comments that been being made. And thanks all for participating and checking out some of my work and my amazing students. Yeah, Sound Drop. Yeah, I love Sound Drop. It's not working that well on new iPads. Yeah. Sure, I'm sure developers have to, it's hard sometimes to keep up with all the changes, new iOS and different iPads. I'm sure a lot of people are kind of drooling over the iPad Pro, but that takes a whole nother level of programming now for someone who wants to create apps for them. I'm just grateful for those developers who do take the plunge, and especially those who keep updating, because there's just incredible music to be made by all, and that's the greatest part. So it really is a democratization of not just music but of society. So if we're doing this with music, then that's already bringing us forward and bringing us along, and it gives all of our students a chance to become modern leaders in a 21st century environment. So please be in touch with me. Please try anything. If you even just try one of the apps that I showed today, then that's a great thing. So thanks everyone so much, and again, thanks CTD and everyone involved. Really appreciate that. Yeah, Daniel, thanks. Yes, Amy Burns, awesome. Yes, there are a lot of awesome music educators using technology in very powerful ways. The iPad thing is kind of my specialty area, but other teachers are doing pretty amazing things too with other technologies as well. So yeah, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, the Mac Pro video articles, thanks Daniel, are another resource. I write about some of the same things that I was talking about here. I feature different apps in different articles, and I talk about how I use those apps with my students.